MelBUG, so our second year into the Melbourne Bluebeam user group, and it's really exciting to have some good speakers lined up today and just see some faces and some regular people coming back. Today we're really lucky to be joined by Deepak from CAD Group Australia. He's going to Deepak's written a book which is the Up and Running with Bluebeam review, and he's a bit of a knowledge expert in Bluebeam, so it's really quite great that we're able to have him here today to talk to us. And we're also going to trial doing a bit of an interactive session using Bluebeam sessions, which Shanok will be running. So, and we'll, as all sort of live interactive things go, I'm sure there'll be some teething issues and things, but hopefully it will sort of help people to understand how Bluebeam sessions work and sort of understand that how easy it can be to utilize them. So just a bit of housekeeping. I know you're all sort of very well practiced on doing Teams meetings and things now. So if you could just mute yourself, and if you have any questions throughout the presentation, if you could put them into the chat, and one of us will monitor that stuff on the chat and sort of put it forward. But then otherwise, I think we should have time to run through some stuff with Deepak after he's finished speaking, so then we can open it up a little bit to everyone. So it's just a little bit of an agenda. I think we've probably covered a little bit of that already, but just wanted to talk about MelBUG, but particularly if we've got any new people on the line who haven't joined us before. So these Bluebeam user groups, they've been going all over the world. The Sydney have had a really successful one over the last couple of years, and MelBUG kicked off start of last year. And it's a space really for us to be able to get together and share knowledge and talk about what our successes and our difficulties are with Bluebeam and share workflows. And the idea is to be open and allow everybody to kind of learn off of each other, because I think it's like it really just will help. The collaboration will actually help all of us to get a lot more out of the program. And there are some really interesting things you can do with it. So there's a couple, so in the bug community, they sort of happen all over the world, and there's been some great ones that have been popping up. So stuff going in Sydney and New York and many different cities over the world. And you can actually sort of go onto YouTube and the Bluebeam websites and find a lot of the recordings of these, like some really good content from all over the place. So I would encourage you to get on there and have a bit of a look through that if you're that way minded. So my name's Lachlan. I'm the senior structural engineer at ACOM, and we've been using Bluebeam at ACOM for a number of years now, sort of having a fairly paperless type office. And where we come from, so I'm just hosting today because Ben, who our normal host, Ben May, who many of you may know, he's a bit under the weather today, so I've sort of just stepped in for picking up the hosting duties for the afternoon. So Ben, Shanok, and myself have been working on this as the MelBUG champions for the last couple of years. As I was saying, like, it is a collaborative kind of space, and we're always looking for input from people, whether it's about presenting in really good workflows and things that you've been working out on your end, and also that we would love to sort of actually grow our little committee here as well and try and get somebody else who's really keen on it. So if you are really keen, get in contact with us and just come and have a chat with us after the session. And if you got something that's really interesting that you're working on, something really cool in Bluebeam that you're doing, or even if it's something that's just like seems like it might be quite basic to you, it's probably going to be really good content and can be really useful to someone. So I'd encourage you to all sort of put your thinking hats on and wonder if you could actually help contribute as well. Would be fantastic. So I'm going to throw this over to Shanok, and we're going to have a bit of a crack at having something a little bit more interactive and a bit different from what we've done in the past.
Yes, this should be interesting, eh? See how we go. I'm just going to share my screen up here. Let me see, I've got my screen. Just let me know if you can see my screen okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were sent out a little bit earlier a little how to create a studio account. So what we're going to do today, Lucky came up with this great idea about a little interactive thing where we could do, what's it called, a popcorn quiz, I think it is. It's 80s movies, and it's like a garage, and you'll see it soon enough, and you'll be able to pick and try and choose all the different type of movies that you can spot inside there. The intention is whoever gets the most amount of movies correct will win Deepak's book. We're going to see how well we pull this off. We might be able to tell you by the end of Deepak's tips and tricks. We're really hoping to. Otherwise, we'll email you later on. Just depends how quickly we can get the information. Look, I thought I'd better give a bit of a background of what Bluebeam Studio sessions are, if you haven't used them before. So yes, you're here because you've used Bluebeam, or you may be finding out about it. Fine. You can do your markups right there on your PDF. If you want to share it with somebody else, one method would be just to email that PDF to them, and they can mark them up and then email it back. Or you might go as far as put onto SharePoint, and you can both take turns opening it up. But what if you have, say, 30 people on a project and you all want to mark it up? You can put it up into Studio Sessions, and in that, up to 500 people can do a markup all at once. So we're seeing this a lot through the infrastructure projects. You might be doing value management, where maybe the accountants and the engineers and maybe the building owners or the actual builders themselves are all collaborating at the same time on these one set of drawings to reduce the costs, to talk about problems and try and address them. So while you're chatting away, or you're trying to guess these, we'll go through some other examples on this. But effectively, we're putting information in the cloud, hosting it there, and then when the session's finished, you're drawing it down, and we've got the final markups that everyone's been part of. So there's a lot more to it. I should point out, Ben, you told me earlier her name. Maybe Lachlan, you remind me. Mid last year, we had a MelBUG, and Sophie from Robert Berg Group did an excellent presentation on studio sessions and how she's used it for shop drawings. See if we can try and chase up in some sort of follow-up of which YouTube video you can watch on that one from the bugs on Bluebeam YouTube. But she did so well. She really covered it so thoroughly, like an engineer would. So today we're going to be using the Studio server on the Australian server, so the AU. There is previously in the past people who have had the American server or on the US. So to understand the difference, there is 2019 and 2020, you can use the Australian server, and previously you could not. If you have a Studio session account or Studio account to review 20 and 19, you don't need to do this. You can join in with what you got. If not, please follow along. We want to have a crack and just play this, kind of interactive game and just see where it goes. So I'll step you through the process. So starting off, when you go into your studio, and ask questions if you want on the way through. Lachlan will keep an eye out for anything in the chat. We go into our studio account here on our access panel, and we go to our sign in, right? So you can see here on the numbers. Once you go into your sign in, you'll see that you have your create account. This won't take too long. Just go through obviously your name and your details. As I said, if you've already got this set up for the Australian server, great. That's all well and good. Just wait for everyone else. Your password, just to pay attention, you need between 8 and 32 characters. You're going to need a upper and lower case and put a special character in there, and then make sure you get that right. Once you've done that, that will send a notification from Bluebeam to that email you just set up, and you basically just need to say, yes, I'm a real person, not a robot, and then you can do a sign in. So there's some more information inside here about having a look around and what's inside there. If you're on, actually, this might speed up the process a fair bit. Can someone put in the chat if you're on the American server or you've got 20, you're using review 17 or 18, maybe even previously, you'll have to do these details down here. Actually, I should point out 19, I'm sorry. Let me see, if you're on 19, I have to go back a bit. You'll have to plug in your own server address. So where this is located, you go to review, you go your preferences, inside your servers, you can actually go in and you can add your own server here. And your server will be bluebeamstudio.com.au. Okay, so that will be the address you type in there, and that will create the link into the proper server. You can jump on in. Well, this is going to be very interesting in how interactive it is. It could be a very quick game. See how we go.
We've just got a couple of people, Shan, who are on the Bluebeam 2018.
Yep.
So for the people on 19 and 20, yeah, we've set up some sessions on the Australian server, but for the people on the older one, we've set up some sessions on the US server. So that will still work as well. But what I encourage is, if following the same process that Shannon was talking about creating an account, if you don't have one, you just need to go into Bluebeam Studio and then log on to the US server in the same manner. And if you don't have an account, we sort of set up an account now with your email address.
That's exactly right. So while some people might be still doing that, I'm going to sign in on one of my accounts. Try and remember my password. That's good, I did. So in here, and I won't open it right up yet, you can just jump onto these accounts. So we've got group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and see how we go in the background. Either Ben or Lachlan, we're going to organise the different groups.
Yep, I've got that. Which one's the US server? A separate one again?
Yes, it is. I'll log back. I have to log back out and get that server.
So we're going to have 5 groups in total.
Well, I think we've got enough numbers here for just how many? Maybe even just 3 groups.
3. Yeah, let's do 3. I've got the latest list here.
Anyone have any troubles jumping in? I saw one room where there's a whole heap of people in there. You can all be in the one group. Any questions at all?
So there's a question there from John about, is there any session ID for the US server one? So I'm actually logged into the US server.
Number have you? I was going to jump in myself.
So I can drop that into the chat.
You've got access control on it too. Group 3, I just turned it off.
Okay. So John, I've just dropped that US server number for the session in there.
Anyone else on the US server?
Yeah, maybe just post all the text for the servers shown so people can copy and paste it straight in.
All right, there I've got I've got the US server here.
So US server number is 307-475-933 for the session. And do you have the numbers for the 3 Australian server ones, Shan?
Yep. And for anyone who's not too sure, just do the little plus up here. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. You go to add and you join a session and you type in these numbers. So the session group 1 is 09747-470. And who's in that one, Ben?
Which one?
Group
Let's back up top. Group 1 is there's quite a few. Armin, David Batchelor, Philip Corbett. Can't pronounce a couple of the names. Dana Seca and Lachlan Cleverton. Yeah, the American server, you've got the restricted 10 these terms, and the other ones did as well. I've just changed those.
Sorry about that.
Just for the group that are joined in the boardroom, there's a group of sort of 5 or 6 people in a boardroom there. It's going to be a little bit of teething getting everybody onto it, but once we have it on, Shan will put it up on the screen and we'll be able to live see other people posting into that. So although you might be able to play along by actually seeing what's on the screen when it comes up, and hopefully you'll be able to see sort of how the session itself works.
We thought there might be a teething issue, but bear with us.
Interesting. It doesn't allow people to join if they've already requested. If you turn off the restriction.
I'll give permissions now to everyone.
You still have to approve them if they've already requested. That's it.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
Yep.
So everyone should be right on the US server. So maybe just give it a crack with. Maybe just get everyone to jump onto the rest of the people in the group 1 and just see how many people can get their own names down. Anyway, we can track that through. So I've got a heap of people jumping on board. So we set up a tool chest for this. If you actually double click on this BTX file down here, that will create a tool chest that we can set up for different teams. But it doesn't really matter. You can just use the whatever color you want, to be perfectly honest. And we'll be able to track through who's making what comments and so forth. So as soon as it's been selected, move on to another one. So try and guess all the names of the actual movies shown inside here.
So the BTX file there, John, is just next to the MelBUG logo on the bottom left-hand side. There's a little on the screen. There's a little BTX file link there. So if you double click on that, that will automatically load that tool chest into your tool sets.
Everyone's got permission on the US server.
Just Gloria Wong.
Yep, that went through. That's done.
Okay, so that should be okay now, Gloria. Thanks. Sorry.
All right, and then make sure you just jump onto your documents here. So anyone now can start to jump in here and add a movie title. Okay, I can see some action on the
Something.
going live. This sounds so good. I reckon still is a good idea.
Liam just needs some approval for access as well there, Shan.
Yeah, which one's that one for?
Liam Brimmer. For the he's on the US server.
Yep. That should be through. Yeah, Liam, that should be fine. Yep, Liam's in there. I'll take the restrict access out anyway. So while you're guessing at some films and so forth on here, although I'm still here to see some words up on here. Let me see on the US server. Who's coming through?
It looks like Nicole's put a few up there, which is good.
Brown 8. I can see green, but I can't see names. So I was saying earlier that I've talked to some architects once that are using this for basically when we could get everyone together in the same office, maybe you can in a different state. And what they do is they set up a studio session and everyone would communicate together. And instead of just doing classic, here we've got the drawings, or maybe put up one PDF on the screen and everyone talking about it and make their own notes. And then that information gets put together, and then minutes of the meeting. Effectively, the drawings can go up on the screen. That can be a studio session. You can take turns and actually follow people as they do markups. But everyone else in the meeting, whether it's 4 or 15 other people, can do their markups at the same time and add their own content to this. And that means that the studio session, you can actually put a time on this. So you might time it out that, you got 2 days to add some more comments and interact with one another. And you should point out that you can do things that if I'm working, say, with Lachlan and I want to send him a notification, I can do a markup, notify Lachlan about this markup. They'll either notify him inside the session if he's logged on, or go to his Outlook and send a direct link to the studio session and to the actual markup itself. And from there, he can keep adding, and we can keep communicating through the markup. When the when the PDF is all finished, then you can bring it all down, and that becomes the minutes of your meeting. And there's ways you can create reports, so I can get a full report of everything that I've said inside that session, and I've put out to everyone else, and I can get a report of what everyone has told me that I need to do. Because in fact, there might be the architecture drawings, but there's some structural information I need to abide by, and same thing for the MEP and for the builder and so forth. All right, getting some results now.
Yeah, going really well, everyone. I think the good thing is these markups, I mean, they look like they're all by the same person, but if you actually look at the markup panel at the bottom of the screen, you can actually sort by author and see who's posted those. And often when you're working in a group where you've got architects and engineers and a builder, you can also set those tool sets so they're in different colors, or different, they all look different. So you actually immediately look at your drawing and understand who's been commenting on what. So looks like David's doing really well there in the team 1 session there.
Right, and I'll look on the other one, and I've got my author GW1. John, you got to step up, falling behind.
I'm aware of that.
One thing that's interesting to note, if I jump into one of these things, I can't actually edit someone else's markup. So here I've got a markup of John's, and just I want to sabotage John, I can't go in here and go, no, he's done, I know, Schindler's List instead of Back to the Future. I can't make any change. I can send notifications, as I said earlier, and alert attendees, but that's it. It's interesting how compelling it is that you want to answer these things. I did this with my family on the weekend. We're just so determined to, you know, get them all right.
Were you doing a Bluebeam session with your family?
No, we were just staring at the screen. I train Bluebeam, but training my family is a different story.
I think that was pretty good commitment.
All right, we're going to make sure we go leave good time for Deepak. So I'm going to end this session in maybe, what, 32? Is that enough time?
Yeah. Well, do we want to go through the self-marking thing just with the statuses? We can probably do that on the screen now just to sort of show people how that might work, and then we can mark them separately when Deepak.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to pull up. Now, was that a JPEG you gave me? I think it was. Oh, that's not what I want. Bear with me while I just get the JPEG up from the answers.
I guess so Shannock has actually created a status profile for this session. So using the statuses, we should be able to select a markup and then change the status to either correct or like true or false. So it becomes quite a powerful tool for going through for things like shop drawings and stuff. So if you want to just demonstrate on the screen how that works.
Yep. Unfortunately, of course, I've done a red one. I didn't think about that. But if I go into here on this matrix one here,
correct.
That's put by Phil, I can go into the statuses and I can say it is correct. So now I've got a correct inside the statuses here. So you can go through and take this further and do a correct, set status to correct. Or if it's wrong, do the false. Yeah. Sorry, Dave, that one's wrong. So I'm going to say you are false. Unfortunately, red is red. We can do your own little self markup here, and then we'll go through this and get the most answers. So if I just do a new PDF here, and I'll that will do. Go to tools, and sorry I didn't build this earlier. File. Now I'll get. All right, so you better go through in your own markup now and just do a right click and go through the document you have and see which ones are right or wrong. So we have Toy Story. Never got this one. A Perfect World. Still don't know what that one is. Clockwork Orange. Even my kids got that one. Is that right or wrong? Is that bad parenting? Matrix. Willy Wonka. Zombieland. Gremlins. Crocodile Dundee. We'll send this out afterwards as well. Willow. Don't really know how that works. Watchmen. Never-Ending Story. 12 Monkeys. Total Recall. Top Gun. Taxi Driver. Fifth Element. Zorro. Well, it's going to take a while. We're going through some markups.
I think we'll go through and we'll have a bit of a markup afterwards, but I think it was good to sort of demonstrate how those sessions, like the statuses, can work, and that can be quite a powerful tool, whether it's a shop drawing review process or a group sort of process where you're ticking things off that have been addressed. So perhaps we'll close up the session.
Yep.
Bit of a new experience for us trying to do something interactive with such a big group. So thank you all for your patience. And I think Shan did a really good job of sort of conveying the important information there. I might now share my my screen quickly and do a introduction for Deepak. So thank you all for that. Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick reintroduction of Deepak. I know I spoke about it at the start, but like I said, his book, which is the Up and Running with Bluebeam Review 2019, he's been very kind to donate a copy of the book, which we can award out at the end of the session. And Deepak's got some really interesting knowledge in this field. We thought it was off the back of our last session, which was sort of talking about general tips and things that will be quite applicable to a lot of people. We thought it'd be a good opportunity to get Deepak in to have a chat with us. So Deepak, if you want to share your screen and then you can run through your presentation.
Sounds good. I will share my screen now. So let me know when you guys are able to see my screen.
Yeah, got it.
Fantastic. So I'm ready whenever you guys are.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, fantastic. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I know somebody from the US is joining in as well. I'm not sure if that's correct, if they are still there. So good evening to them. Otherwise, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the country. I want to quickly start with thanking the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to come in and do a tips and tricks session. Bluebeam is a software, or review is a software that is really close to me. I absolutely love it. No matter how much we talk about BIM and 3D and so on, there's always PDF files, and you got to mark up PDF files. You got to do a lot of stuff with those things, and that's where Bluebeam review is absolutely fantastic. And giving me the opportunity to do this tips and tricks session, I really thank you, the organizing committee. Most of you guys already know me, so I don't need to go through my introduction. I just want to quickly say my apologies in advance if you are already aware of these tips and tricks that I'm going through. But I just find them really, really handy, and that's why I put them in these 35 tips and tricks that I go through in an hour. Obviously, I'm not going to take 1 hour of your time right now. I'm probably have about 20 minutes, so I'll try to wrap it up in 20 minutes, or as many as I could go through in 20 minutes. So let's get started. The first one is studio projects. Now, you guys talked about studio session, and we played this little game in the studio session. And I must say, Sean, I was actually pretty keen on putting in comments myself, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to refrain from commenting so I don't win my own book. I'll let somebody else win the book. So I didn't comment on that. But so you guys talked about studio sessions, but I'm not sure if you're aware of studio projects as well. So Studio Projects is basically a lightweight document management system that comes with check-in, check-out functionality. And over the period that we've had in the last year and a half, where a lot of people working from offsite and they needed access to the documentation, this is where Studio Projects played a really massive role. Because in Studio Projects, you can't just upload, or you don't have to just upload PDF files. You could upload any file format. That's the really cool thing. So if I just quickly open a studio session here, I'm going to close this. And if I go under studio, so in here, we've got sessions. But if I click on this button here, that's studio projects. Currently, I've got these studio projects that I am either a member of or I'm participating in. And if I go to this review 20 presentation, and by the way, as Sean and Ben and Lachlan mentioned earlier, with review 20 version, or you can host your sessions and projects on the Australia-based server. So this is a studio project right now, where, as you could see, I've got some PDF file uploaded here. I've got a CSV file. I've got a folder here where I've got some Navisworks file sitting in here as well. So in projects, we can upload any file format, and it comes with a check-in, check-out functionality. So I can right-click on any of these documents, and I can go and say check out for me to start working on them. Now, the really cool thing is, if I check out a PDF file, it'll open it inside review so I could mark it up. But if it's a non-PDF file, I can still check it out and I can start working on it. And when I open this file, or when I try to open it, it opens it in the native program installed on my machine. So I could go and make changes to this file. Let's say for wall closeout, I want to change this to, let's say, walls WCO or whatever it is, and I can save changes to the CSV file, close. And now when I'm checking this back in, I've got the option of adding some comments as to what changes I made. So I could go and say, change the wall closeout symbol. And what this now does is it actually keeps the history, keeps the version of this document. At any point of time, I could right click on this document and I can go and say revision history. It shows me what's been going through with this document, what changes have been made, and so on. At any point of time, you could also go to a previous version and you could make that as the current version. How cool is that? So it's a really smart cloud-based lightweight document management program that you can use to host any file. As I mentioned, if you open a PDF file, after you check it out, it opens it in Bluebeam Review where you could mark it up. But if it's a non-PDF file, it'll open it in the native program installed on your machine. You can make changes and you can check the file back in. And once you have checked the file back in, you can then maintain the version history and even make any previous version as the current version as well. So I find this really handy. As I mentioned, in the situation we've had in last year and a half, we've had a lot of people using Studio projects for their document file repository as well. So that was my first tip. If you haven't used Studio Project, I would strongly recommend you guys give this a try. The second one is keyboard shortcuts. Now, Carol did a presentation a little while back where she talked about Studio shortcuts. She talked about shortcuts and so on. I absolutely love shortcuts. I don't like burning my calories in going all the way up there to the menu and then going here and then clicking buttons and so on. That's too many calories to burn. I don't like that. So I like using shortcut keys here. The really cool thing about shortcut keys is if I go under review, I can go into keyboard shortcuts here. And if I want, I can modify these shortcuts as well. So for example, let's say I want to change the shortcut key for typewriter from W to something else. I could go and type a different key. A really cool thing is if I type in a new key, if that key is already being used, it would actually tell you that that key is not available. How cool is that? So again, a really smart way of setting up the review the way you want. And most importantly, after you've done that, you can then export these settings and import on a new machine. So you could do that, or you could even go to help menu and you could go into keyboard shortcuts here. It displays this PDF file where you could take this and you could take a printout of it and stick it to your workstations. It's got all the shortcut keys that the program comes out of the box with as well. So keyboard shortcuts, one of my favorite things. As I mentioned, I don't like burning my calories and going all the way up there and then clicking here. See, Sean, how many calories you're making me burn? I don't like any of that stuff. All right. The next thing, which actually I did not even put it in my tips and tricks thing, but I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Bluebeam Review is one of the most user-friendly packages you would ever find. And the reason it's such a user-friendly package is because everything that Bluebeam Review wants you to do, it displays that as a prompt sequence on the bottom left corner. Now, this bottom left corner is on a bar called status bar. And unfortunately, status bar is not displayed by default. So it's turned off by default, which means that you can't see the prompt sequences. But if you go under tools, toolbars, you can turn the status bar on or off from here. F8 is the shortcut key. Normally what I do is if I've got the status bar turned on, I also add it to my profile. So that way, every time I change my profile, it brings back the status bar as well. So for example, in this case, if I go and type in T key for the text box markup, see on the lower left corner, it's now telling me to select a region to place the text box. So that's a really cool thing about this, that every time you invoke a command, on the lower left corner on the status bar, it shows you the prompt sequence telling you what exactly are you supposed to do. So if you are new to Bluebeam Review, I would strongly recommend you turn status bar on and look at the prompt sequences. As I said, I did not even put that in the tip here, so I might be charging you guys extra for these extra tips that I'm giving you. All right, going to the next one, reopen files from the previous review session. This, hands down, is one of my favorite features of Bluebeam Review. The license that I've got is what we call as open license. So let's say in my company, I've got 20 licenses and we've got 30 users. So whosoever fires up their Bluebeam Review first, they get the license, or first 20 would get the license. So normally what we do is, if we are going to a meeting or something, let's say I've got all these files open in my review session and I need to go to a meeting. So I know the meeting's going to take a couple of hours. In that case, I don't want to leave review running. I can close Bluebeam Review. So once I've closed Bluebeam Review, I go to my meeting. I come back from the meeting. I fire up review again. Now I need to open all the files that I had running on my machine when I last had review open. So in this case, when I go into the file access panel, under the file access menu on the top left, I've got this option called reopen files from last session. As soon as I click on it, it actually reopens all the files from my last session. And not only just it reopens the file, it also navigates you to the exact location you were at when you closed the review session. So in this document here, I was at this location. It automatically navigates me to page 5 of 5 at this location. Similarly, wherever I was in the previous session when I had review running, it takes me to the exact same location. So not only opens the files, takes me to where I was, which means that I don't have to worry about remembering where I was when I closed the review session. How cool is that? All right, next one, setting preferences for order sizing text boxes. As you guys already know by now, I'm pretty lazy and I don't like burning my calories. So normally what happens is when I go and write a text box markup, and let's say this is a sample text, blah, blah, blah. And when I click somewhere outside, that's the text and that's the size of the text box. And it is even more annoying when you have the text box, something like this, which has got the border and so on. So normally what you would do is you would then select this text and then right click and say order size text box. Alt Z is the shortcut key, and it order sizes the text box. But again, imagine doing this all day long. That's burning so many calories. And again, as I mentioned, I don't like that. So if I go on to review on the top left, and if I go into review preferences, I can now go under tools from the left left pane, and I can go and say markup, and I can go and say order size text box and call out markups. What this now does is, as soon as I go and add a new text box markup, irrespective of what size of text it is, as soon as I click somewhere outside, it automatically resizes the text box. How cool is that? And same thing holds good for the Cloud Plus tool and so on as well. It'll automatically resize the text box of the Cloud Plus tool as well. All right. Next one is holding down the Shift key to create straight lines or squares or circle markups. I reckon most of you guys already know about this. But I'm not sure if you guys know about this one here, where you can hold down the Alt key to draw a 3-point circular arc or a center point circular arc. So when you hold down the Alt key before drawing the arc, it lets you specify the start point of the arc, the second point of the arc, and the end point of the arc. So for example, if I go under my markups menu, and if I go to the arc tool here, normally you would pick the first point and the second point, and that's the arc that it creates. But if I go back and if I hold down the Alt key before I specify my first point, now I can say my first point is here, second point is here, and the third point is somewhere here. This is really handy. A little while back, I was asked that somebody wanted to show the boom arm rotation of a crane around the building. So this is a really handy tool to be able to do that. All I had to do was hold down the Alt key before I specified the first point. And same thing, if I go to the ellipse tool here, by default, you're picking 2 points to draw the ellipse. If I hold the Shift key, it becomes a circle. But if I go back to the ellipse tool and hold down the Alt key before I pick the first point, it now lets me create a center point circle. Again, how cool is that? All right, the next one, Format Painter tool. It's surprising, like what Sean and Lachlan were mentioning earlier at the start of this presentation, was that sometimes we think that it's such a basic thing, but a lot of people do not know about this, where you could actually match properties of elements inside Bluebeam Review. So let's say if I've got this ellipse tool here, I could right click on it, and I've got Format Painter tool that lets me match properties of this to anything else that I want. So it lets me match properties by simply using the Format Painter tool. It's available on right click, as I showed you. Applying selected markups to all PDFs, again, really handy tool. So let's say I've got this set of drawings here. It's got 5 pages, and I'm going to go and add a markup here. Let's say let me just do this. And I'm going to add a markup here. Please update the rev table. All right, now I want the same markup to be applied to the remaining pages as well. So if I go to the remaining pages of this PDF, I want the same markup to be applied to all these pages. I could simply right click on this and I can go and say apply to all pages. What this does is it'll ask me what pages I want to apply to. I'll go and say pages 1 to 5. OK. And it now applies the same markup to all these pages. Now, remember that in this case, all the title blocks are the same. As a result, it goes exactly where it's supposed to. If you had a set of documents which did not have the markups or the title block the same, in that case, when you are saying apply to all pages, you can then go and create a custom range and pick the range where the title blocks and borders are the same sizes and apply only to those pages. All right, sorry, I'm just rushing through this because, as I said, I need to be mindful of everybody's time. Backspace to deselect the previous point. This is, again, one of my favorite features, especially when you're working with area measurements on raster PDFs. So let's say I've got a raster PDF here. I need to calculate area measurements. And because it's a raster, not vector, I can't easily snap onto the points. So let's say in my case, I want to go and add an area measurement. And I'm going to pick my first point here, second point here, third point here. Now, I'll keep picking the points, but then I realize that that's not the right point. In this case, if I go and press the backspace, it actually deselects that previous point that I had selected. Similarly, if I press the backspace, 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 I can start all over again. So pressing backspace will let you deselect the previous point in area measurements, in polylines, rectangle, polygon markups, and so on. So a really handy tool to just remove the previous point all the way to the start. So this works for polyline markups, polygon markups, area measurements, volume measurements, and so on. Multiple leader lines to callouts. So this was one of those features that people had mixed opinions about. Oh, why does it keep moving around? Why does the leader line? So basically what I'm talking about is, let's say I've got a PDF here, and I've got this this callout tool. If I right click on this callout tool, I can go and say add leader. And now I can add multiple leaders to this callout. But notice that as I move my cursor, it actually moves the leader line with it. Now, what you could do is if you press the Alt key once, it actually locks that leader line there. So as I'm moving the cursor around, let's say I want to do something. As soon as I press the Alt key once, it locks the leader location there. It hasn't placed the leader yet, but it has locked it. So I can see exactly where I want to place it. Just a reminder, as soon as you navigate around this page by zooming or panning or press the Alt key again, it then goes back to moving this leader line. So pressing the Alt key once locks it there. And then you can say, all right, do I want to place it here? Do I want to place it here? And so on. Once you're happy with this, then you can press the Alt key again and say, I want to place it here. Also, if you hold down the Shift key, it lets you create the leaders at 45 degrees angles. So a lot of people, they are very particular that the leaders need to be at 45 degrees. So you can simply hold down the Shift key. Again, Alt will lock the orientation unless you zoom or pan again or you press Alt again. Right. Align text, again, one of my favorites. So let's say I'm going to go and add a typewriter text here. Let's say a sample text. I'm going to quickly modify the properties of this. I don't want fill color. I want text color blue. And I want the font to be this color. And I want the font to be this one here. I'll press Alt Z. So let's say I've got a few different places where I've placed this text. Now, if I go and hold down the Shift key and select all these texts here, I could then right click and I've got this option called alignment where I can align these texts. So I can align them left, center, right, align top, middle, bottom, and so on. Now, if I go and say align middle, because I right clicked on this text here, all the other text would be aligned to this one. So whichever text you right click on, the text would be aligned to that one. Similarly, if I right click and say alignment, and if I go and say distribute horizontally or distribute vertically. So if I say distribute horizontally, it automatically modifies the spacing between the text so they are distributed horizontally. You could do the same thing with distributing them vertically as well. Hyperlinks and images and snapshots on additional pages. Again, this might take a little bit of time, and I know we are running out of time, so maybe I'll come back another day to talk about this in detail. But this is one that I wanted to really show you guys. Again, hands down, one of the best features of Bluebeam Review. Now, please note that starting Review 19 or 2019 onwards, this only works for Review CAD or Extreme, doesn't work for Standard. Up till release 2018, it worked for Review Standard as well. Where, let's say you've been given an IFC file and you want to quickly open the IFC file, you can see how it looks like and so on. So for that, if you go into the File Open dialog box, I want to open it from my machine. And on the bottom right, I've got this option called PDF. If I click on this, I can open image files. And this is where, again, a lot of people do not know about this. But if you need to convert an image into a PDF, you could simply change this to image. You can open an image. And in the process of opening, it creates a PDF file out of the image. But in this case, I want to open an IFC file. And if I double click on this IFC file here, it now starts to convert that IFC file into a 3D PDF. You can go and add some standard views. So I'm going to go and say perspective, left, top, and orthogonal view as well. I'll say page size I want to use is ISO A3. I can define what kind of background I want, lighting scheme, and rendering mode. So for rendering mode, I'm going to go and say I want it to be, let's say, shaded illustration. So as soon as I go and say OK, it now converts that IFC file into a 3D PDF, and I can now take this 3D PDF and spin it around. How cool is this? And if I've got my 3D panel opened, I can click on any of these elements. It even highlights that element here. And in my properties panel, it gives me all the information about that element as well. Again, how cool is this? So it's giving me my cut length. It's giving me all the additional properties that I'm after. And again, you could go and section this. So if I say I want to create cross sections, I can section based on boxes. So if I say I want to create a cross section, so that's now a cross section here, and I can modify the properties of the cross section as well. Similarly, I can also mark it up. So let's say I want to mark up this here. As soon as I go and add a markup, the program automatically creates a 2D snapshot of this view. So you could come back to that 2D snapshot. If you want to close out of the 2D snapshot, you can click on this cross on the top right, and you are back to the 3D view. And as soon as you click on the 2D snapshot, it takes you there and shows you all the markups there as well. Again, how cool is this? Now, I'm really sorry, I've only gone through 13 tips here, but as I said, I need to be mindful of everybody's time, and we might want to leave some time for some questions as well. So again, thanks to the organizing committee for giving me the opportunity. Hopefully next time I'll have a bit more time and then go through some more tips. So thanks again for giving me the opportunity. I hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks.
Okay. That was excellent. There's quite a few things in there, like the alt circle, alt arc thing. I think blew my mind a bit. Something that like a lot of the just things that are quite simple, but you just don't really know it has the capacity to do it. I think just in the interest of time, we've probably got enough time for like maybe one question now, and then we want to just award the winner of the book and wrap up the session. But I'm just wondering, Deepak, if somebody has like any extra questions, whether you wouldn't mind hanging on just a little bit after.
Sure, no worries.
And then we could perhaps run through. So Shan, do you want to?
Well, we answered some questions going through anyway, but one of them came up was preferred IFC settings from Revit to use in Bluebeam Review. I'll be honest, I'm not sure of an answer of that one. Deepak, are you aware of any preferred settings?
Well, most of the settings work. Again, I haven't looked at any specific settings. I can have a look, but most of the IFC files that I've been sent, I've been able to open them in Bluebeam Review.
I don't know if anything else. There was a question about how you make, how do you set your default font size and color, but we answer that collectively as well about there's an option inside Bluebeam to make it your default. Then David jumped in there and say, set up in your tool chest as your preferred
Correct.
symbols.
Personally, I'm not a big fan of modifying the defaults. And the reason, again, is let's say something goes wrong with the machine and they need to reinstall program, or you need to change the machine and so on. Your defaults are restored. So I'm 100% with David on this. Set up your own tool chest with your own tool sets. And that way it's easier because you can then share it with multiple machines and also your other members of your team.
I'm going to say I picked up a tip or two for sure. Definitely like that one, especially the backspace one. I didn't know about that one. Thank you, Deepak. That was really good. I've heard about your tips and tricks sessions for quite a few years now, so I've been eager to watch. I'm going to just share my screen again because I have some results for you, and I really appreciate everyone's patience. I try not to take too long setting up our studio sessions with you guys, but also aware that might have been a little bit quick for some. So I do appreciate that. So what we've come to see here is from, I can't remember, this one might be the US team. So what I set up in here was using the filters to say what was correct. So I did a quick search here. So you can see we've got false and corrects. So if I type in there correct, this will filter for me just like Excel, or the corrects only. Then I jumped onto the owners, and then that gives me a total count of who got how many. So in the US, we had Brown 8, I had 12, and when I jump onto the Australian one, same one, I had Phil, you got 13. So Phil, you're our lucky winner today.
Hey, well done, Phil.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your patience. Apologize, it was a little bit clunky at the start. We're excited about setting it all up, but wasn't too sure how it might fall through. But look, hopefully you got to see what Sessions does. You got in there and had a play anyway, and it was a bit of silly adult fun regardless. All right, leave it up to you, Lucky. Thanks.
Thank you to Deepak. That was excellent. I certainly learned quite a bit through that, so it's a real privilege to have you here, and hopefully it sounds like we might need to get you back for a bit more. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I think, Shan, do you have any news updates, quick dot points about what's coming up in the Bluebeam world? Or
Look, the only thing that's really going to stand out is the XCon is obviously going virtual this year. I'm not sure, Deepak, if you're presenting again, probably did get a golden ticket because you were going to present, I think, the other year. I think I am, but you know what? This is a good chance to get more Australians out there. We're quite inventive and got some good workflow. So I think we have an extra week of putting in submissions for XCon. So have a crack at it. See what we can do, guys.
I'm just trying to get my presentation back up. Just start. It's all right. We don't have to go through the whole lot though. So we'll be having 14th of September 2021 is our next event. So we're always looking for more speakers and more people to share. So if this has triggered anything for you, like we'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested at all, like please get in touch with any of us. We also have a Gmail there and LinkedIn. The recording of the session will be put up on LinkedIn, so you can tune back in there. And that will have a link to the YouTube recording. So just following the session, just keep an eye out for some following correspondence from Ben, and then that'll come through. And yeah, again, I just want to say a massive thank you to Deepak. Thank you to everybody else for tuning in. And I think if anybody has any additional questions that they really want to talk to Deepak about, I think he said he was sort of happy maybe to just hang on the line for a couple of minutes afterwards. So thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, organizing committee, Sean, Lachlan, and Ben, for giving me the opportunity.
You're very welcome.
Cheers.
Our pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Deepak, that was excellent.
Thanks, Maya. I appreciate that. Yeah, unfortunately, didn't have much time to go through some of the other stuff, but yeah.
Our little session probably went a bit longer than what we intended, but it's always the case with those live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
right. We were going to have another speaker come on and talk about sessions, but as we were saying, but it just kind of fell through a bit. But
yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. And with these online events, there's always something that goes wrong. So we spend first 5-7 minutes, 10 minutes just going through some technology stuff. It's funny, we are in the technical industry and we still can't get the technology right.
Bound to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We've still got Mark on the line. Mark, did you have a question for Deepak or? I would have gone to lunch. All right. We can probably wrap that up and then Deepak. Thank you so much again.
Thanks,
and I think we probably need to get you back another time if you're willing to. If you're willing to do it, it'd be great to sort of hear some of the additional stuff you have.
Sounds good. No worries.
Cheers,
Thanks again, Lachlan. Have a good one, man. Cheers.